Hello, it's future me. I was really excited about making this video on installing the SimWorks by Honjo fenders onto this Rivendell A-Homer Hilsen. And I had to use a new video editor, and I sort of lost a little bit at the beginning of the video. You know, a little button, did stuff. I didn't realize it would erase the video from my phone. I thought it would just erase a backup copy in my app, my video editor app, but it erased it from my phone too. So that was a learning experience. So we missed a little bit of the beginning, and I'm just going to go over it real quick, and then we'll get back into the actual step-by-step how-to. So what we do is we have these cool fenders. They came with some hardware, so we looked at the hardware. They have these little eye hooky things instead of the old style diorama. They have little R clips, and they have these little brackets, which SimWorks sells separately. So I started on the rear fender, and marked the spot and drilled the hole for the little bolt to hold the fender to the kickstand plate. And then I held it up and realized that I had a longer, like a taller bracket, and it wasn't going to work right here. So I went and looked in the package, and it came with one tall and one short. So here's the shorter. I need the shorter on the front too. And we go into the video where I'm starting to talk about needing the shorter one. And I have a bunch of spare SimWorks hardware from other fenders I've installed. And other fenders that other mechanics have installed, and I've gotten their spare hardware and whatnot. So we sort of start there. So the only thing we really missed is showing how to dimple and drill this. We do the exact same thing on the front fender later, so you're going to see it anyways. You missed very little. But that's really the big gist of what you missed. I'm sorry, it's like 20 minutes of the video. At least it shortened the video by 20 minutes, so it took me a minute or two to explain. So we'll get back into the video with me freaking out about Fender hardware, and you can see all the rest of it. So thanks for watching. Enjoy this video. All right, I immediately unchecked my box and found another one that's way shorter. Then I decided to check this, and they're not the same. One of them is way shorter. It comes with one tall one and one short one. What if I need the short one for the front too? Luckily I got a box of spare fender bits from previous builds, including the old style wraparound dudes, and there's dioramas in here, and just millions of these little L brackets. If you don't have the thing you need, Honjo sells all this stuff separately. Some other companies sell it separately. You can always hit me up. I might throw one in the mail for you real cheap. It's also got this really pretty one. It says Honjo on it. 3 holes. This thing's gorgeous, but all these have to be done or they're totally hidden. If I have candy breaks or something, I might use this because it's prettier. So there's lots of the uncommon hardware in here. All like the normal R clamps and things won't be in here because they all get used every time. Some other big weird brackets. There's so much stuff. So let's use this short king. Honjo Koken 1 set. Bunch of Japanese writing all over it. And you can see how much smaller it is. So much smaller, so much shorter. So the trick is, gotta figure out where this goes. Like that. I need to take the brake off. I need to bolt the fender on. I don't want to do either. I'm trying not. Of course. Oh, it can come off. I think I really like these hammered fenders because it really gives you a line, you know, a reference. I think this bottom bolt is going to have to be right down. Make sure this is still lined up. Right down below that little line in the fender. Double check. Probably would be faster if I just took everything apart like I'm supposed to. I think that's golden. Luckily I'm real sure, because once you drill these holes you're boned. So I'm lining this up with that center hole, and the center stamping of the hammering is right down the middle. This makes it real easy. You got all smooth fenders, it's a lot harder to figure out your lines. I usually do a lot more Sharpie lines. You can just mark that, and we're magically going to be dead on when we try to install these, or realize we're horrifically off. This hole is real easy to ovalize with the file. It's thin aluminum. You move it a lot. It's real hard to see down there, and you put a washer on both sides anyways. This hole, I wouldn't want to ovalize too much. We can definitely move this back and forth, you know, probably up to 1 centimeter. some ovalizing of all the holes. So it's not the end of the world. But let's punch and drill these guys, then we'll pull that brake off, and we'll figure out how to get this thing installed, including custom special spacers down there. Whoa! Installing Honjos, I tell customers all the time, I charge $250 for this. It takes all day. It takes me 2.5 hours with the easy hardware. If everything goes right the first time, no problems. And it'll often take me 5 or 6 hours. Often a lot of fenders, Honjos are pretty good, but a lot of fenders do not actually fit the radius of the tire at all. So they have it like fit nice everywhere. But having it back here, it'll be sticking out like 3 inches. So you can massage fenders. There's a tennis ball trick you can put on a soft carpet or something. Use a tennis ball on the inside and roll it. I usually just use both hands. Even these dimples have changed it. Use both hands and just massage, massage, massage open, or massage, massage, massage closed all the way around. And if you open it, massaging open, pulling this inside out, it will shrink the radius. So you can make your fender line fit a lot better. If you squeeze it, it'll make it wider. So sometimes you do dimples here, dimples there, it'll make it all goofy. You know, if I hit one side of the hammer a little harder than the other, which I clearly did, but no one's ever been able to tell. It can make it a little wavy if you do it. So you have to come by and just open this side a little bit more, bring that wave in and make them still fit your radius, not go whoa, S-bendy. So, oh, the sun's here. So it can be a little tricky. I'm going to dimple and hand drill these because the hole's very small and that bit on my drill's probably fine. I just don't want to go too far. And let's just drill on the press. It's kind of already set up. This is like a $2 punch from Harbor Freight, so you can afford this tool. Man, I love a spring punch. It puts a little dent in there, plus a little dimple from the punch. Makes it real easy for that drill bit to not wander. And there's my hole. 2 holes, can you see them? These holes need to be bigger. Let's check these little Honjo screws. Yep, a little bit bigger. Just grabbing the hand drill. I don't want to reset the drill and rejigger that whole thing. Just to make these 2 little holes a little bit bigger. Same thing, it's got some shrapnel on the inside. I'm just going to take a bigger bit and just knock those chips off. Okay, put this on my lap. I do a lot of file work on my lap. There's just no good vise to hold it. There's no way to move around your bench without hitting stuff. So the inside has this little brass backing plate to make it strong. That's important. It's got 2 little tiny Phillips head screws and 2 little tiny nuts. The nuts have a little texture on them to help them grip. Put the screw in. Put it into the Fendork. Put the brass plate on the inside. I did go like a size up drilling these holes. And that is, so it has a little bit of wiggle room. You try and do everything exactly right and it's off by like a 1/2 millimeter. Nothing lines up, it's very frustrating. Like everything's a little bit oversized. It's a little sloppy, so stuff can go through and find where it wants to go and adjust and tighten down and not fight you. I can wiggle this bracket back and forth 3 or 4 millimeters between the slightly oversized all the way around. Do some fine dialing. Looks pretty centered on there. I'm going to see if I can tighten them down. Just use my finger on the back of the nut. Put my finger in the little grip. This should get grip. It should be able to tighten down. Feel it gripping in. I'll need to find a really small little socket. Beautiful. If we have to loosen these and futz with them, we can. They're probably going to stay on there forever, those little grippies and the soft brass. If you're paranoid, you can put some Loctite on it or something. I generally don't use Loctite on bikes. I'm going to bolt this in and see if this stuff all still lines up. Alright, I flipped the quick release to make it a little easier. I've got a nice Allen wrench. These are the Sunlight ones. They're really cheap. They're stainless steel. No one uses them. Everyone uses like $80 versions of these. They have a ball end on one side, so they're a little trickier on this side, but it's really nice for trying to get into little tight spots, like brakes. These wrenches are like 14 or 15 bucks or something. I had a set of these I used for like 8 years. I loved them. I mostly love them because they're color coded. We got plenty of room in there. If you're stealing too many of these threads with all these spacers, you take the spacer off. You could get a slightly longer one of these. I think it'll be okay. Set the brake here, don't fall everywhere. But anyways, I've had these Sunlights forever, no problems. Love them, recommend them. It's the only thing I can say that a Sunlight product I say that about, that's for sure. All right. Put this nut back on and we're going to see if I still feel it's got enough threads. Oh yeah, I still got 3 or 4 threads. That's most likely totes fine. Now spacing this out away from the frame. Again, it's on a radius, so spacing it out away from the frame can make your brake pads might need to be adjusted. They might have moved up a couple millimeters or down a couple millimeters, so got to recheck that after. Okay, it's all the way up. The brake's got the quick release going. It's not touching the fender anywhere. And I can see the cream of the tire all the way around. So I'm happy. This looks pretty good. We could definitely get it up like 2 more millimeters. So if you really wanted every single millimeter of height, we could come in here with that file. Oh, that's a lie. The head of this screw is touching that bridge. That's as high as it can go. You can file that head off, get flatter screws. That's what you'd have to do. You'd have to do something else. Those like flat tapered screws, the conical ones, instead of like the overhead ones. I have a hardware store next door. I could probably go over and find one. Probably a couple extra bucks. But it is high enough. If it was any lower, I would. I'd be like, nope, I'm getting a tapered screw. I'm going to buy this 2 millimeters. F that. The pads still look pretty good. They could be down a couple of millimeters, so we did move it up a couple millimeters. Sort of shot up as it came out, so the brake went. I might adjust those pads. Get this guy on and tight. We're going to see if this bolt hole down here lines up. God, please line up. Here is a whole bin of M5 bolts I have. They're mostly long, brand new nuts. Here is a whole bin of spacers. Some of these I ordered off eBay. They're actually like beads. You can get stainless steel and brass beads that happen to be like 1/4 inch inside diameter. So you run an M5 or M6 bolt in. You can get these in different heights and shapes, and I use those a lot. I've also got a bunch of these spacers. These are these come with a lot of your plastic fenders, especially for disc brake bikes. You can space them out away from the disc brake. I think spacers are worth their weight in gold. I saved every weird aluminum and steel spacer. If you don't have any of those, this is the brake nut from a V-brake style bolt, from a threaded post style brake bolt. They are M6, so an M5 will pass right through them. They're chrome, they're nice taper. These come in black all the time. So if you have some old V-brake pads or something in the trash, you can steal these little spacers off, and they come in real handy. I used to have leather spacers, the little leather washers, in all the thicknesses. Velo Orange and Honjos are 2 millimeter, but you can order some from Cycles Grambois in Japan that are 1 millimeter and 4 millimeter, so you can sort of really dial in your space. Sometimes I use a leather washer over a couple of regular washers, and a leather washer to hide the regular washers. It would really dial it in a mil or two if you're really trying to get perfect. I do not have any leather washers at all right now, so we'll do this sans leather washers. So I got to figure out, you can see, here is the kickstand plate, here is the Fender. I'm going to want to come up a little bit. I'm going to bend it a little bit. So I got to see if I got a bolt long enough. This guy's like a 1/2 inch too long. Let's see if we got anything else. And always cut bolts down. It's probably too short. If you dig through enough junk hardware, you'll always find the thing if you save all your junk hardware. Ah, this one's right in between. This one's probably the right thing. I just want some Fender washers. So it's a little 5 millimeter washer, but it's kind of real fat. Biggest, fattest ones ever. A little extra reinforcement around that hole. Now one of those for each side. And then we need to find a spacer, or 2, or 5, or whatever it needs. Little Presta valve jam nuts also make great spacers. This is M6 threaded, So this will just fit over M5, and I've stacked 5 or 6 of these up. Do what you want. Guesstimate that distance. Here's the longest spacer in here. Bro. This is the longest spacer I got in here, and it is just about perfect. If I had a leather washer, it would be perfect. So I guess we're doing that. It'd be a lot prettier than using, two short ones butted up to each other and stuff like that. So if I could make it look pretty. You can also just buy solid chunks of aluminum or brass tube. I've done that in the past. Just cut it down to shape. This one's weird. It's not a bike part. It's like the hole's real big in the middle and there's threads in it. It's from something else. I was like, you know what? That looks close enough. We're going to use this guy. Alright, repop this. Oh my god. Holy wheel out. All right, hardware is important. I'm doing it in the right order. Got my long ass bolt. I'm gonna do a washer, put it through this fender, do another washer, then this spacer, and it's got a threaded boss in here, so it should just thread right in, not be an issue. If it's too long, I might put a lock nut on the back side. Please, baby, line up. It does not. It needs to come down a couple of millimeters. I should have done a better job guesstimating where this fender was going to be. Oh, it's come out a lot. Like a lot. I guess it's sitting on top of it, so it needs to come down like 5 millimeters. We're going to carve this into a little oval. You buy Velo Orange and stuff, they're in a big oval for this exact reason. And I gotta pull it out. Ugh, the sun's not blinding me. I gotta pull it out and pull all this off anyways to redo the step I should have done in the first place. It's so easy to try and be lazy. It never works out. Here's another trick. This chain's all in the way and annoying. I'm gonna thread just a random old long M5 bolt, like a water bottle bolt, but longer, like a rack bolt, into one of these rack stays, just to hang the chain up on, so it's out of the way. I really do want to bring this down. My dimples are already a little bit high. It's gonna move up. There's lots of room. I really want to bring it down so much. I'm thinking about might just drill another hole right next to it, like touching, and then just file a little teeny tiny bit to make it into that oval. Or I could take a trusty Harbor Freight round file and just try and file it oval, but it'll definitely wander and get ugly. I'm gonna drill first. Center punched. I drilled a big second hole, and now I'm just gonna file in between them. This is gonna take a few minutes. Wish I did have a tiny old jeweler saw blade. Trim with tin snips and bend it and cut it. That'd be probably faster too. This will work though. I'm already most of the way there. This hole's a little farther away than I anticipated. Now, if you're careful, you can tape this all up so you don't nick or scrape it. I got my fingers in the way that will mostly hit it. A few little nicks and scrapes down here. Not going to be super noticeable. So another nice thing about these turtle fenders is they really hide all the dents and scrapes, whereas the smooth ones do not hide anything. Well, it's 100 years old in a week. Already through, and it's got to keep coming. Just get this little down from the other side and come up. And take a little flat file. These are a little flat jeweler's file, just because there's like a little point in between. I'll make them flat too, so it looks like a nice machined oval. So two drill holes go next to each other awkwardly. One side is perfect, the other side's still got a little high spot. And now it looks like a nice machined little slot, just like the VO fenders and the classic fenders come with. Now we're going to come through with this guy and the spacer. Oh, And it is like, bolt might be like slightly too short. Sure looked long enough. Sure might not be. We're gonna go to the next size bolt. Also, the angle of this kickstand plate tab is like bent way forward. I'm gonna bend that up slightly to be more in line with the fender, just a good degree or two. Hopefully this doesn't violate any warranties. Your 12-inch Craftsman's also usually pretty dang great at doing some gentle persuasion. You need something to bend. Now we're in line, just a little bit. All right, longer bolt, big washer. All the way through. Big spacer. I'm gonna go one more big washer. I always go to the hardware store and get a really big washer. Okay, all right. I'm gonna tighten this down and put the wheel back in just to make sure I'm actually happy with how everything is. I'm big enough for that oval. I can adjust it back and forth a little bit. We can play with it a little bit. We will see. All right. It's a nice thing about sunlight wrenches is every size is a different color. So your standard one is purple for all your M5 stuff, blue for all your M6 bolts. So 4mm, 5mm, and then it's like a real light blue for the real big 6mm. So that's all the way up. That's tightened down. That's all the way in. With fenders, you really want vertical dropouts. So these dropouts are straight up and down. You do it with horizontal dropouts, you have a whole other issue. So you put the wheel as far forward as possible with horizontal dropouts. So they have to come forward a little bit to fall out. You usually come forward into the fender. Sometimes they hit this bolt down here. You don't want to drop out, so they can be a real trick. So verticals are really best. They're much harder to build frames with vertical dropouts. A lot easier to use fenders. But it's about the same. The only tight spots from about the bridge in through here. And that's because of the brake and that little bolt. So there's nothing we can do about it except for go buy all new hardware. And still then we're not going to get as much as I want. So I'm just going to call it good enough. It's real close. Another trick, which is true, you want to do it on purpose, you don't actually want this to be perfect. This is actually better. Have a slightly big gap here because you want anything that can get in through the back to be able to clear all the way and fall out and not get caught up down here. So this is all right. This looks good. We're calling it. The back's still nice and big and clear. Fender looks good. Gap's more or less even all the way down. All right, now it's time for this U-stay. It goes on the back like this. It comes up and kisses these dropouts. You can see it's way too long. It's going to touch the fender. So we're going to have to do a little bending and trimming. But that is neither here nor there. We're going to figure out where we want them. You usually have a little bit of angle like this. Little Honjo logo's up here. I might come a little bit below the logo. You don't want to come all the way down. You want as much support as possible, make this distance a little shorter. You could do something real big and ugly, but I'm going to do just a little bit of subtleness. I've got a little clip that sits on this. We're going to mark and drill these holes as well. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, the middle of the 4th dimple from this sticker. Ooh. And their stays are sized perfectly. These holes are going to be right dead center in the middle of these hammered spots instead of all on a ridge and weird spots. So that is great. So I'm going to center punch these holes. Now normally you could pull all these bolts off and do the fender again. This is so easy. I'm not scared of it. I usually just take a couple pieces of cardboard and stuff them up just so it hits, the drill punches through. It'll hit the cardboard, not punch through and hit the tire. So I have to take these all the way on and off again. And then I can sort of move them out of the way when I tighten them down and get the back plate in and then push it back to its fine. Or we just pop the wheel out. But let's be lazy. Got my center punch. It's always got metal splinters on it. Punch the center. that dimple. Punch the center of this dimple. Oh yeah, let's drill. So these are the Honjo screws that come with this. They're a weird screw. They take a Phillips. It's weird. I'll probably use them. Sometimes I don't, and replace them with regular water bottle boss bolts or whatever. You can hold it up to figure out what size drill bit. This drill bit's like exactly the same size. I really want a bigger one. I'm going to switch to, I usually drill stuff for M5 bolts out to 1/4 inch. Because like I said, they've got a couple millimeters of wiggle room, so you have to fight it. This is the machinist bit out of my drill press. So it's got a little starter bit, and then it tapers up to 1/4 inch. I like that a lot. Pop it out and put it in the drill. So this is a just chunk of cardboard. So pizza box from the other day. Just sticking it up here. That's just in case I punch this drill bit real hard to the end to grab and really jump through and save the day. Hole. Cardboard come out, barely touched the cardboard, did not go through. Golden. Get the bird. Try it from this side too, just in case. Yeah. I can't really hit it straight on. So this little half roundy clip. Got this thick steel backing plate. It's basically a nut with 2 threaded bits. And we got the 2 screws. Just screw and a 1. Push it up out of the way a little bit. Get the screw started. Just getting it started. Popping this broham in. And then getting the bottom started. And we'll do the low working tension like I talk about in some of my videos, where you want to get stuff started. You might even want to get it like barely finger tight so you can really move things around, slide things around. Already thought of a step I skipped. Let's see if we can slide this out gently. Alright. On Velo Orange fender stays, they have 2 little dimples. So you can really center them. These do not. I'm going to take a Sharpie and mark the center. If you get these things in slightly crooked and tighten this down, your fender's always going to sit in an S-bend. You're going to fight it. You'll never be happy. Ask me how I've learned that one the hard way a dozen times before I figured this out. So I'm just putting these both down, assuming that they are more or less straight. Oh, these do have a tiny, tiny little tool mark right in the dead center, right from where they bent. Whatever tool held them where they bent. So that's helpful. It's almost imperceptible to human eyes. It's a little sort of almost scuff. I put a real Sharpie line on. And also just look at it this way. Nice even gaps on both sides. My little lines hidden in there. Probably good. A low working tension, just tighten it down just a little bit. So we can still slide her up, pull this back, and put it on top of the dropouts. So it comes down and touches these dropouts. I don't trust that it's perfectly aligned, but I guess it's real close. Oh, I don't have the tool I want here. Oh, I have a little tool. It's at home. I want to use for this. Got a big giant tool. It's way in the way. She was a kind of small one. It's kind of in the way. It's a little teeny red tubing cutter for doing pipes. It is so small. I might walk over to the hardware store. They're like $5. I'm gonna get my fender where I want it. Even fender gap on both sides. Seeing a little bit of this. Move it down here. I'm gonna use this bottom. It's got 2 dropouts. The top's gonna be for a rack. Otherwise the fender still will be in the way. So I'm gonna use this bottom dropout. I'm going to line it up so it doesn't hit the quick release skewer, so give me a few millimeters from there. Plenty of room for it to still sit in the R-clip. This is going to poke out a few millimeters, so a couple millimeters to wiggle it either way, in case we need to for some final adjustments. And then, now that I marked the stay, we're going to use a tiny tubing cutter and whack it off. You don't want to use a hacksaw. You definitely don't want to use bolt cutters. They cut a real sharp end. It's ugly. It sticks out. You'll cut yourself on it one day sooner or later. So I'm going to use the tubing cutter. But another trick is these things are a V shape right now, which means they're always under tension. So I'm going to bend the tips. So just the tips are bent so they just magically kiss the stay and just sit nice and even against that eyelet instead of being under tension with the arc clip. And that way they won't, when you tighten it down, it doesn't pull the fender way over, they're under tension. So they're under tension, and someone touches or bumps the stay, or there's a little bend in it at a bike rack or in your garage, and the stays will go boong and rub your tire and always be rubbing, and you're going to be fighting the tension always. So no tension. These are going to sit here, hovering magically where we want them. No tension. Cut off. This has a little Honjo logo in it. The word Honjo's upside down. Am I anal enough to flip this thing over to make it read on the right side? Turns out I am. Turns out I am. Velo Orange doesn't do that. I'm also going to go to the hardware store and buy this tool, even though I have one at home. I keep forgetting to bring. And oh, it might have been a little bit off. It has a little mark on it from moving it. 2 millimeters left onto the stay, which is exactly what I thought. Lego my ego. You can see this little rub mark right next to my Sharpie mark. So I'll try and get this in a little straighter next time. You can see the little Honjo logo. I'm going to read it this way, so I want it to go that way. Put this back in the other way. And move this in, so it's got 2 little marks down here. So I'm going to move this mark till it's out a little bit so I know that I'm straight for. Move this up. Kiss into the stay. I'm going to cut the other side, check it against this side. These might not be exactly even. They're usually pretty close. But I'll probably really just mark it, just cut them both where I marked it, and that'll actually be more accurate. I always cut these things twice. One side's sticking out a few millimeters farther than the other one. Fender, you're acting like these aren't straight at all because it's pushing way over. It's all like all janked up. So I don't like that. So I'm going to wiggle it over to where it was wrong. See if that's better. Want to kiss? Yeah, look at that. No tension. So the fender's now like centered on the tire. So this thing has to be slightly off. All right. Like, all right, man. Like, whatever, forever. And now, now this side's mark where I put it is like way too long. Lift this up and center it and make a new mark. I'm gonna go buy that tool and I'll shut the garage door on the way back so you don't have to see all this blinding light. Okay, dokie. Hardware store. It was $11 for this little guy. Got a slightly bigger one for $15, but I think even smaller is even better. Mini tubing cutter. So little, so mini. If you ever try and do this job, without one of these little mini cutters, when you try and do it with one, you will think this $11 is money well spent. Oh, it's interesting. They usually have like a little gap in there and they cut a little different on both sides. This one is so cheapies. Does not even have a gap. It is so cheapo. But it's so small. Superior tool. So sent these guys, I brought them back. And now I decide I don't like what this line is anymore. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This line is like, basically gonna touch the stay. I'm gonna shorten it up a little bit. I'm just gonna put this on right next to it and not worry about it too much. I'm gonna take this little cutty tool and it goes in this little V. And you spin it all tight. It'll stop being a brat. You can always make it shorter, so go ahead and cut a little long if you're paranoid. You spin it around 4 or 5 times, and then you tighten it up. And you spin it around 4 or 5 times, and you tighten it up. You spin it around 4 or 5 times. You do that 4 or 5 times. We'll also close the door. Get rid of some of the sun glare. Hopefully that helps. You know, I was enjoying that sun warming my shop, my unheated little shop. It's a little harder to use than the $15 one. Maybe I should have got that one. Cheap. Always being cheap and lazy. There we go. So just keep cutting through and keep cutting through. And it cuts through to about the very end. In the middle, last little peg snaps off. Now it'll sort of mushroom this end a little bit, and I used to be annoyed by that and like file it off, or some of these have like different grooves, and one side will cause the mushroom and one side won't, so you gotta like mark it or remember. But I decided I kind of like the mushroom now because it keeps the R clips from falling on the floor while you're working with them. Hoo-wee. So we got the R clip, it's gonna go on. I got the little factory screw. And I usually, sort of depends. Sometimes I do the R clips down, but then they could be in the way of the quick release, so you gotta pay attention. I think this will be totally fine. Sometimes I go up, but then this might be in the way of a rear rack if it mounts one. So I think I'm gonna go down, so I think it'll be fine and be less in the way that way. If they'll fit over this little mushroomed end. And they will not. Guess I could put these on first. Alright, tubing cutter, you suck. So I'm gonna take a little file and just see if we can take that burr down. You can take the whole stay out again and take it to the bench grinder. I've done that. But usually it needs about 3 or 4 seconds. And then it'll be totally magic. Come on, jerk. Now we want the R clip to go all the way over the stay with some of the stay poking out. You can't do it part way or halfway. It needs that clamping force all the way around the tube to actually hold it in place. I'm going to use their little stock bolt. All their bolts are the same. They're all M5 threaded, but they're all kind of long. The one on the other side is probably going to be too long. It's going to want to hit the cassette, so I'll have to use a little spacer or cut the bolt down some. I do that all the time. Just hacks off, a few threads off, take it to the grinder for a second. And here I'm skipping a step again. If you see as I'm tightening this down, this is moving over because it's only U-shaped. We have not bent it yet. So we're going to undo this bolt. We're going to bend this dude. The Velo Orange ones are soft enough. You can kind of just grab it and do it by hand. The Honjo ones are usually a lot harder. Here's just a random piece of metal tubing. And I'm going to stick that on. Oh, there's a mark on this one already. I usually like to have a mark so I can do them both about the same. And I usually like to know about where it touches the dropout. So this is actually, doesn't need much. I'm going to use this little rust mark on here with my thumb on it. So I'm going to hold this against the tube where the rust mark is, hold my other thumb on that spot so I know right where I'm bending against. I'm just going to give it like just the tiniest little degree, like a 1 degree. Just so now instead of being a U, the top's come in just a little bit, it's kissing this fender stay, and that should take the tension off. And now when I slide this little brat in, you see the fender is still lined up on the tire. It's not all jacked way out. That is what we want. That's touching the quick release right down here. So I'm going to pull it back in the R clip just a couple of millimeters, so I cannot do that. There's still a couple millimeters of it sticking out, so this is a very tight little operation. If I did do the R clip up instead of down, I would be able to have a lot more sticking out, not as tight, wouldn't matter, but then it's sort of in the way of this other eyelet, so you'd never be able to use a rack. I do not like using the full screwdriver, whatever. Come back with a wrench and double check these are tight later. So now it's on. This gap still looks really good. It's like kissing. This is like centered, maybe like a millimeter this way. So you can always just barely add a little bit more bend at the end. We'll bolt the other one down and see what it does first. A little closer up view of this one. So you can see, I got the little Sharpie mark right here. It's way too far as well. Just like the other side, we had to shorten. Did I save that little piece? Can we hold them up? I did. So if you want, you can take the little piece we cut off and hold it up to this little piece. And this one is right at that Sharpie mark. Lol, but we went in a bunch. So double check, make sure this fender looks real centered. I come in, I'm going to mark it, again, like halfway between that eyelet and that quick release. I got a couple millimeters where it's the quick release, a couple millimeters before it would hit the R-clip. So cutting slightly longer, which is exactly how we marked this other one. A tubing, a bender. Kind of hold it up out of the way. Slide this little tubing bender right up to our little Sharpie line. So the little blade is on the Sharpie line. We're going to tighten and we're going to twist. We're going to be real boring for the next couple of minutes. I'll probably cut it out. Just going to do this 4 or 5 times. A few twists, a few tightens, a few twists, a few tightens. And get a break. There we go. Let's get a little twist to snap that last little millimeter off. Do the same thing with that rust mark. So put my thumb on that rust mark, holding it up over the tubes. Put my thumb, well, we're going to stop it. Grab it with my hand and just go, just a little tiny bend. Littlest, tiniest bend. I'm assuming we're going to have to clean this up just a little teeny bit. R-clip. Stock bolt. The other bolt sticks out like 2 or 3 threads. It might not hit the chain, but it looks like it's going to come real close. It's already got a washer and a lock washer. I could put a press to valve jam nut under it. Or I could just grind a couple of these threads off. And jam nut. The floor in this shop is not level at all. It's very hard to have rolling around things. All right, 1 press to valve, jam nut, 1 bolt, perfect spacer. I'm going down, so get this R-clip on, down skis, fight over those little burrs that I didn't quite get off good enough. There we go. This will keep it from falling off. There's like no threads poking out, so I gotta like press this R-clip to get the thread started. There we go. Didn't quite want to go the first time. Tighten this guy down. It is not sticking out the back, but it's still in through all the threads. Now just tighten down. It's all centered up. You can see the line of the fender goes right down the line of the tire. I'm feeling around for gaps, making sure it's like this part isn't like almost rubbing the tire and the side is like a 1/2 inch. Feels a little slightly tighter on this side. You know, fenders aren't perfectly wavy. You can always just bend one of these stays in a little bit to push it over or back. But now it's pretty solid. It's not under tension. We're going to tighten these guys down still. This might move it a little bit. It's still perfectly lined up right down the center. Stick. The rattles, the jankiness, the brake isn't even actually tightened all the way in yet, so this is nice. The line, you know, it's not perfect, but it's a stock bike. They're never quite perfect. Still see a little bit of the cream all the way around. A little bit more down here, a little bit more down here, but real close, real good. Would I call it good enough for a show bike? No. Are any bikes actual show bikes? Almost none. Don't worry about it. Like, it is very nice. It's very nice. No one's gonna say that and go, ugh, that fender is installed bad. Ugh, that line's ugly. Everyone's gonna look at that and go, dang, that looks good. And it does. It looks dang good. So now we just have to do the front one, which is basically all the same stuff. So, you know, if you don't want to watch the whole video and see that, I don't know if there's going to be any fancy tricks up there or not. I will do that dimpling. It'll be a little bit harder. I only have to do the 1 bracket at the fender instead of the 2. So it's a lot easier because I have to line up those stupid holes and just put that front bracket in wherever I want, and it's going to be cool. We'll do the back. The front is much, much easier as long as you make sure it's not down too much and too close to the ground where it could catch the curb or something. But let's go ahead and just do it real quick. And let's go ahead and do it real quick. I'm going to double check and make sure this back brake's all adjusted. But also don't forget to take all the Sharpie marks you made off, because the customer might go, what's that? That's weird. I would also, if this is if I was really going to be crazy about this bike, or knew it was going to kickstand, I would mark this bolt and come and cut, you know, that last 3/8 of an inch off, so it's sticking out too far. But I think it'll be fine. I don't think this bike's going to kickstand. If it is, I can always do the bolt when I put the kickstand on. Oh boy, okay. Let's do this front. It's warming up in here. I did wear something I wanted to show off for the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I got one generic shirt made up for videos so I can look super cool. Like, so cool, man. Modified by Star Michaels. I couldn't find any other logos in high enough quality to make a shirt out of. Okay, so going back to this guy. We know where we want it. We know what bracket we want. I think. So we got this tall bracket that came with the fenders, or we might use another shorty. And I say we're going to use another shorty. Back to the parts bucket. Here's another shorty, brand new in the package. No worries at all. If you don't have this parts bucket at home, I'm pretty sure Simworks sells all of these bits extra separately for only a few bucks. I know Honjo did. I know I used to. I had Northern. I had all the stuff on the wall in the package for sale. Hold stuff up, compare it, recommend stuff. So this is going on. This hole's going to be right underneath the dimples. So I should do the dimples first. Mount these about dead center. The dimples on each side. That is a plan. These dimples kind of big. Marking these holes. Let's go back to doing the dimples. It's a little scarier. I'm going to hit it a little harder. Just as good. And these dimples to be kind of big. I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to use these existing, hammer marks. I'm going to go a full one out on this side and make a mark, a full one out on this side and make a mark. I need bends to be through there. Back up to this scary, scary boy. This is 31/8. I might go a bigger tubing block to make sure I get those dimples bigger. I feel like I have like a 35 or inch and a quarter or whatever. I never use it. Really never do like double oversized tubes. I think it's too small for big head tubes. It's in there, got a little cutout. Putting these bad boys right on there. Big tube. That is a big dimple. That is a big boy. That's scaring the poop out of me. I want them to be a little more even. One more hit back here, I think. That is huge. Let's see if this is big enough. If I look at it from the inside, I can tell this one's a little deeper, this one's a little shallower, and a little bit longer. See which side's better. So I might pull this one out a little bit and push this one in some more. Well, these dimples are dramatic. They are more than they need to be. So I'm going to work them both open just a little bit. Just a little bit. To make them look a little less dramatic. Okay, should have no problem. We can go back and forward several millimeters that I'm touching. Lots of clearance. The tire might be touching them. I thought this needed to be more dramatic than it is, but I screwed up. Okay. Massage this out a little bit more. Seems like it's working. See, look, it's working. I'm just kind of squeezing it in there, pushing a little bit, massaging. Just massage these dimples a little bit out. Nice soft chunk of wood. I just found this at Goodwill. Probably make one of a big dowel or big scrap. A lot of wood places have scraps for very cheaps. Definitely tell I'm right-handed. As I hit, like, this side's sharper, and then I flip it over, that side's a little sharper. Come up with a slightly better system. Might be in my future. Gentle. I guess we can do it out here. Oh yeah, this isn't rubbing at all. Look at that, it's got tons of clearance. Up high, it's got tons of clearance. This should be fine. As long as it still hits. As long as the dimples are still where they need to be. Letting it in. Okay. Dimples are where they need to be. Still have a few millimeters before they hit the frame on both sides. I want to dimple this one. This one up a little higher and this one down a little lower. Yeah, I'm going to mark that. I'm going to hit that. Just making these a little bit more even. This one's like up here, and this one's just down like a 1/4 inch. So I want to bash that a little lower. The same thing down here. I'm not trying to make them more pinched in. I'm just trying to make them a little bit more even, like the same heights. Okay, just evened them out. So all the room in the world. And now they're going to be the same distance on the blades. So a little bit of wiggle room for this center bracket. I'm going to go one more time and just eyeball one more time before I drill these center bracket holes. Should just pop the wheel in there now. These are black fenders. I probably have to make sure I didn't scruff them. We've got the built-in like 1/4 inch wiggle room. The bracket should, in theory, be totally it. I want the front of this bracket. You can see up in here, I can see the edge of the fork crown. I can line it up on the fender. I want the front of the bracket to stick out a couple millimeters farther forward than this dimple before my dimple. And that's exactly where it's sitting. So a couple millimeters forward of this hammered line. We're right there. So I'm going to drill this out, bolt it on. A couple millimeters forward of that. Yes, but the thickness of this thing, I want to push it a little farther forward just in case. So I'm going to remark these holes I marked. I'm just going to move my drill centers just this way. 2 millimeters to make up for the thickness of this. And that should be good. I'm going to drill slightly oversized, so I can always walk it back a mil or two if I have to. I don't know where it stopped recording. But I'm going to go bolt this on, and this little brass backing plate does not even come close to lining up with this little jammer. I'm going to check some other ones, see what's going on. Weird, so all the other kits had a smaller version of this brass backing plate and it lines right up. So it's nice to have extra hardware. So line the bolt up, line the bracket up, line the brass plate up. Use this fender as a tray. Catching my nuts because I'm dropping them. I'll get this guy started by hand. Sticking this other bolt through. Remember. Come on. All right. A lot of guys like to run way too small fenders on way too big of tires and run them way too tight. This is what they forget, is that all fenders, the hardware sticks inside the fender. You need clearance so the hardware is not rubbing your tire. Just a gentle reminder. Do the same thing. I'm just going to push down on the nut from this side and hope it catches. All right, so I had some technical difficulty. My phone kept dying because it was out of storage, so I spent all night and some this morning editing this video to make more room. So I got the little Honjo bracket bolted on. Had a little problem where the brass plate was misdrilled. And I think it came out of the package, but it might have been a different one I'd sitting around because it was a bin of hardware I was digging through. So I found a correct brass plate on another one. Everything lined up. Everything is perfect. Extended the dimples on this. Massaged it a little bit so it's tight enough for the fender clearance. Next step is taking all this junk off the front so we can get this dude bolted on. And then we get a fight getting it all back on. And then we'll do the drilling these holes down here and the rear stays. Maybe while this is off, I should drill those holes first. Most likely, probably, definitely. And I don't have to take it on and off more than just the once. What we got? We got a Sharpie. The front, the fenders are really a little shorter. The sticker's a lot lower. The back, the sticker's up like nice and high. So the back, I think I go like below the sticker. The front, I'm gonna have to go quite a bit higher. I also don't really, there's no toe overlap on this bike, even with the fenders it looks like, but maybe. Avery's got huge feet, so I don't want it right at the absolute length of the pedal arc, right when the pedal is the farthest forward it can be. Let's not put the stays sticking out right there, like a lot of people like to do. So I might come in a little lower or a little higher. Well, I do want them right there. Well, I'm going to come in a little bit higher. Come up here just so we gain an extra 6-7 millimeters of toe clearance when we kick in that fender stay every time it does a slight turn while pedaling forward. So let's do it right here. I just held it up to the back, and this is still quite a bit lower than the back. The back's up like another inch. I don't want this to be so unsupported. This is the part of the fender you always catch on things, curbs, turning, walking around. So let's not have too much unsupported fender. So I'm going to say this is good. I could even go lower, but like I said, don't want that toe overlap. So not going lower. Let's drill this baby out. So I put a Sharpie mark on here. I'm going to hold up this SimWorks bracket, move it up just slightly so it lines up better with the dimples. So got dimples, so I can drill a nice flat, even spot. The handy dandy center punch, $2 at Harbor Freight. Sometimes it drives me nuts, but it's working great today. Boom bah. Let's drill, baby, drill. Oh boy. So I got these holes drilled. And I just loosely started the little fender U-stay thing in there. Make it a little easier. I got the brake unbolted and the light dangling off. I put it with this toe strap so it wouldn't dangle and bang around, but actually I'm going to put it back on literally in like 5 seconds. So no point in that, I guess. Fender is up, in position, all the way up. It lines up perfectly. We gotta put the brake on. But we gotta have this light in here too. Brake. Boy, I need 5 hands. This is kind of why I like canny bikes and things. It just one bolt doing way too many things. We will be moving the light soon, which is good. He gets his rack. You know, I'm doing it one piece at a time. Johnny Cash style. Okay, so this pushed all the way on. This brake is holding the fender bracket, the light bracket, the brake itself. Pushing this bolt forward. I can see there is 4 or 5 threads worth of bolts there. So there's still enough threads on this brake. If there wasn't, I would put a slightly longer recess nut in, or I mean, that's what I have to do. So I take out a spacer, but there's no spacers that aren't light brackets and brakes. Pinching it all together in my left hand, snugging it up with my right. The fender brackets dropped all the way down. I think I want it all the way up. We'll have to put the wheel back in to C. There's also another trick with fenders, is that sometimes they don't like the angle on the fork crown and things, so sometimes you put the wheel in, the back's going to stick out a bunch, this will be rubbing the fender. So usually I bolt the fenders up and bend them. So physically bending the aluminum where that bracket is, or possibly bending the bracket. And I'm pretty sure that's going to need to happen. I'm going to get this fender all the way up first. Loosen this a little bit so we can wiggle everything up. Gonna go bend, bend. Now when there's not a brake there's nothing hitting it, and it's really easy to bend. So great for canny brake bikes and stuff like that. This is definitely hitting that. I don't know if it's high enough. I might have to pull the brake off. Let's put a regular ass bolt through, and then bend it to shape, and then re-put it all back together. We shall see. Oh yeah, you can see it's touching down here, and a big gap here. So I need it more bendy. I'm gonna find a big M6 bolt and do that, so I can bend this all I want without it hitting that brake and keep it from bending up high enough. Because it's something called spring back, so you can't just bend it where you want and just go boom, springs back. So you gotta bend it a little farther than you want so it springs back to where you want it. Luckily, I hoard hardware. All of these bolts, these like 20mm M6s, these all came from Tomcat bikes. I think he had some light kit he used that he didn't use any of the stock hardware on, because whatever bike came with it or whatever, this was little bags of hardware, and everyone had one of these and 2 water bottle boss bolts and 4 or 5 washers and a couple of nuts. He threw them all in recycling when I was there. He was like, dude, can I have, I took a bag. There must have been $500-600 for the hardware in there. I was like, okay, dude. Hardware's worth money, bro. I'll snap those all up. There's some other random ones, you know, extra stuff from racks and fenders, and I grab everybody else's extra stuff at swap meets or wherever. I buy stuff online, buy the common sizes, buy whole bottles of it, because might be long enough. It's probably just like everything though. Everything is too short or too long. Well, this one's definitely the right length. All the common sizes use all the time, and the rare sizes are what piles up. I got one I think is going to do the trick. So I used to have like just a hunt, like with little parts organizers. I just buy, you know, a 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 pack of every single size. I used to have all the in-between sizes. I feel like every bolt's always slightly too long or slightly too short. All the common sizes are just the worst. So I would just buy everything. I'd have 6mm long water bottle boss bolts for plastic bottom bracket guides that have 8mm, 10, 12, 14, 16. A lot of people just have like, screw you, that you can get 12 or you can get 20, and that's it. So I just have every size. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, hang the brake out of the way on these shift cables. Stick this dummy bolt through, tighten it down, making sure it's pretty straight. I want to bend it crooked. And then, okay, let's put the wheel in one more time. Sorry, light, you're like in the way, bro. I know. I don't want to scratch you up either. Fairly hand tight. Fender's just sitting on there. And you can see it's still got a bigger gap over here, no gap over here. It needs more bending. It needs brutal amounts of bending. That looks pretty good. You can see the creams in the shadow. I can see the cream all the way around pretty evenly, no problem, right where it's at. We're gonna call this, we might as well get the stays on while we're here, and then we'll pull it all apart and do that stuff, or we should do that stuff now so it doesn't fall all over the place. But what if I want to bend it some more? I don't. It's pretty golden. Let's do the stays. All right, we're gonna get in here good. You can see a little bit better. This is the side that says Honjo. Put it in wrong last time, put it right this time. Got my little black line so I can kind of line it up. Let's get these guys at least low working tension. So let's just tighten up to kind of hold everything in place. Want it about centered. So there's like maybe a ½ inch gap between the stay and the dropout. So I want it to be that U shape. I might as well bend them now. I usually like to come back to about where the stay would be naturally hitting it, which would be back here because it's opening. So here it's not that far open yet. So I'm going to bend it from about here with the handy dandy bender. Come on, hold it tight in my left hand, bend it just slightly with my right. So it'll pop down here and touch. I'm going to hold this back where we want it. Looks good. I'm centering it with my thumb and my middle finger, holding it so I know it's about even on both sides. Come down the bottom, our clip. I want to cut it again, so there's still a couple millimeters before it hits this quick release, but still a couple millimeters extra poking out of the R clip, so kind of right in the middle of where the end of the R clip is going to be. So basically it's a couple millimeters from hitting that. So we know right where it's going to be. Use the handy dandy tubing bender again. God, I keep calling it tubing bender. It's called Superior Tool. It's a little teeny tiny tubing notcher cutter. Pull this guy up. Bro, come right to that Sharpie line. Tighten this bro down. And spin. So we make it kind of tight, we spin till it feels kind of loose, and we tighten it again. Just like we did in the last video, so I'm not going to show an hour of this. I'm not going to show the other side either. Why bother? Already seen it. Okay, got these dudes on. I cut them a little bit short. It's a little scary. I did it for a couple of reasons. One, you don't want it to hit the quick release, but then I remember I'm going down, so it could come out several more millimeters after the quick release. My fault. And two, because you want this to be tucked in a little bit tighter back here than up here. So I just want this to be the tightest spot, so anything that can get in, any leaves, muck, sticks, pine cones, like whatever, gets in, can clearly go all the way through and pop out and shoot out the front. You don't want to get them stuck or trapped up here and just rubbing. And I do get giant leaves just like stuck up here at the bridge, just barely rubbing the tire, going, this will not come out while you're riding. It's very annoying. So you want to minimize that as much as possible. These screws that come with the fenders stick out on the inside like 4 or 5 millimeters. And if this is pushed just a little bit in, it can buzz the tire. So like squeeze these a little bit to try and take some of that bend out. Put more of it, the bend down here instead of here. And kind of lengthen this a millimeter or two so it's off, it's not buzzing. I might change these screws out for shorter ones. Really, I mostly throw all these stock screws away and put in nice regular M5 Allen bolts like you'd use for any rack. So I might do that. I really might do that because it'll buy me, I can use ones that are 4 threads shorter and get 0 tire buzz ever no matter what. This, if it really deforms, might buzz a little bit, might really catch some leaves. So we'll do that, or I might just let it be how it is and see if he notices or cares. It might cause 0 problems at all. I definitely have it off. It is not touching. It's It's got millimeters and millimeters from touching. So our clips are on. I cut and did the other side too. We just got to put the brake and the light back on and do any final cleanups and double checks. So we are going right along. Okay, we got the wheel back in, the brake, the light centered up-ish. That is pinched in the fender. It's not what we want. Everything's always a problem. Fender's on. You can see the line. It's a little low. You can still see the sidewall, but it's a little lower than all the way back here. You can still see the tread just a little bit. So this is a little bit low, and the problem is this is touching the brake. So with the quick release off, it's got a millimeter clearance. It's not slapping yet. Once we have the rack bolted down, it won't slap, but sometimes that can bounce and could slap and touch metal on that brake. The problem is, we're going to hit this quick release. Oh, hey, that opened all the way. It opens all the way, but it pushes the fender down several millimeters. Which, if it was never going to have a front rack that we hard mount to this fender, wouldn't matter. It lets the brake open enough to get the wheel in and out. I thought I was only going to do it like that much. Let's try it. So the options are to go, that's probably close enough. I guess we could adjust that later if we hard mount the rack to the fender, which we may or may not. Or we can say, this is not close enough. I need that room. I would need this brake wheel open as wide as possible with the wheel in and out. So we would have to come up in here underneath this brake arm, right where the brake arm is touching that fender, and add a boop, dimple. We do the same way. I put on the wooden block and take that little dimpler tool, which is really just a cheater bar. It's actually the lever for my tubing bender. It's just a heavy bar. And just go whack, and just make a little whack right there, just so it lowers a couple of millimeters right in that high spot, right in the very center two ribs. We're just touching this brake arm, so let the brake arm go down a couple more millimeters, so let the brake open as wide as possible and not push this fender down. And really, that's what we should do. We're here, we're doing the whole thing. Let's just do it so it will never be a problem in the future. It won't rattle. I won't have to redo this if we mount the rack. Let's fight it now so everything will line up and be just heavenly and amazing in the future. Oh boy. Oh boy. Got the fender off. Set up my wood block again. I'm using a little rag. It's going to support it kind of wide. And I want to put the edge of the wood dents in it. I just want to hit. Mark the spot. There's already even little marks from that brake hitting it. So mark the spot. I'm going to give it a whack. And hopefully this will change everything. Took these guys off too. I'm going to go ahead and just take 3/4 threads off. Let's see how far this one's in. There's a full 3 threads. I'm going to give it a little, cut 3 threads off, do a little grinding. It's very hard, it's a small bolt to hold, so we'll do a little trick on that. But let's see if we can whack this thing straight. Please, dear God. Definitely down a few millimeters. The little ribs at the rippling with the high spot, that part is low. The whole thing is low. Probably warp this slightly or push this open a little bit, we'll see. I hope it's enough because I have to bolt it all the way back on to test. It's definitely 2 or 3 millimeters lower. Should I give it one more whack for good measure, nothing else is damaged? Yes. Yes, I think I will. Just one more for good measure. So now you can see this little low spot. Just the littlest bit low right here. Right there. It's a couple mils, just a couple of mils. It's not too ugly, it's still pretty shiny. It's a few little scuffs, it's mostly from that brake, from test fitting. grind these dudes down. It's gonna be a bit of a trick. Okay, here's my sketchy little trick. I got the bolt. I put just a regular old M5 not nylock nut on here. Here's a little offset fully capture wrench. You don't want an open end wrench. You want this box end wrench. So stick it in there and hold it. Got the screwdriver because it's a screw. So I'm gonna hold it this way, put it up against the bench grinder. Burp, burp, burp. Take off like 3 threads, but I'm just gonna have to wing it. I want to cut 2 or 3 threads off. I want to leave 2 or 3 left. So I'm just gonna grind and grind and grind. If it goes too short, I have some extra ones of these bolts from other Fender installs. It's not the end of the world. Make sure my cable's totally safe. So safe, bro. So safe. Ground down. That first thread looks a little mushed. I need to ground a little bit more and then wire wheeled it to take all the burrs off. I'm going to grind it a little more. You like to turn the bolts all the way around, put a little bit of a taper on them, make sure that first thread can start real easy. I just realized I get the grinder because I'm holding it with a wrench and I can just turn the screwdriver, put an angle against the grinder and turn the screwdriver and clean that whole head up. So that looks good. Another advantage to using this bolt, where I always use a bolt, even when I need to hold the wrench or not, when I'm cutting threads down, it's because as it comes off, you can chase and clean any burrs, and there sure are some. It's a little tight. So now I can use this junk nut to make sure that these threads are clean enough for a new bolt to start on, and they are. That's actually pretty rough. Hold my finger against it. Clean, clean. So sort of using it like we would a tap and die. And now with any luck, this will be clean enough and any old nut will start right on. Haha! It's all back together. Took it off. I ground those 2 bolts down and put them back in, so now there's no issues with tire clearance. It's never going to rub in there. They barely stick past the nuts at all, instead of way too far, like 4 threads too far for reasons. The Fender line is a lot better. I can see the same amount of the cream all the way. It's a little bigger up here than down here. Even though I dinged that, even though I took it off and a second time and gave it a little extra ding in one little high spot, it's still not perfect. You can still flip the quick release. It's enough to get the tire out, but it does push on the fender. You can hear it hit the fender. So that clunk is. This brake arm hitting the fender as it drops down. Still plenty to get the tire in and out. It's pushing on the fender a little bit. Not much. Almost imperceptible, really. So again, I'm gonna try not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be really good. And it is really good. These fenders look amazing. I know I got some mud flaps. I think he forgot to bring them. I'm gonna look around. I don't think he did. Even though the bike's all together, there is one little last thing you gotta do. Everything fits. I do a rattle check. This is knocking fender, but no rattle. No rattle. Because I just did this one, because I forgot to think about it till the last second. But I need to start the camera again for it. Rear fender. You hear that rattle? Sometimes it's the press the valve jam not being loose. In this case, usually metal touching something. So in this fender, this guy was rattling because one of these stays was actually like touching the side. I double checked these bolts being tight. I loosened and wiggled it. But really the rattle was, it was still the brake. I had the fender jammed so far up in the brake, it was always touching and rattling. So I moved the fender down to like a millimeter so it wouldn't do that. And I realized from the dimple and flare, one edge of this fender is just touching that brake arm. I had to get some pliers out, put a rag on it, and squeeze it a couple of times, and it actually slightly dented this thing. That just was so close to the indents I made for the fork blades that it was just like extra stiff right there, that extra body line, that extra dent. So I had to do a slight dent so this thing would stop hitting that brake and rattling. In the past, I've used a little bit of like New Bomb's cloth tape and wrap it on the fender underneath the brake or something. It just won't stop, but it'll eventually rattle through that. I've used that on Mayfac drop bar levers. They always rattle, so I've used a little piece of New Bomb's on the inside of the lever. So it hit that instead of just hit and rattle against the body of the lever. On the rear, it is also just touching like a millimeter right there. It also sounds rattly back here. I'm going to come in here and look. It's not touching on either side. I'm going to make sure these screws are tight. They're dang tight. I mean, they're not dang tight enough. I really think it's here. Give this a little squeeze. Hopefully enough you can't ever see it. And there it is. It's just a 63 millimeter fender. It's just over and just touching. The way these brakes work, they're 65 millimeters in between. They're not perfectly evenly spaced. This barrel adjuster side has like 4 millimeters. This side had like 0. So I just gave this a little squeeze, dented it in just like a mill. Hopefully not enough to really notice. But now it's not metal touching metal to vibrate and rattle against. Sometimes it could be down here. You think you got your $250 fender install done, and the customer goes to take a test ride and just rattles and drives them crazy. Metal fenders will pick up rocks as you go around and flick them off. They'll hit under here, make a ding, ting. That always freaks customers out. You just gotta tell them it's normal. You get used to it. Don't worry about it. A little ting here and there. The rattle is fixable. As long as it stays tight, doesn't get moved around too much, it will not rattle. So that's the last double checks. I also just took a rag and went and found any of the Sharpie marks. There's kind of some down in here behind the chainstay. I should have got before because I could barely get them, but you can't see them. I also switched out his rear derailleur. We're having a real problem. We had a short cage, silver, modern, cheap derailleur, so only getting silver. We had a wolf tooth on it, and it just would not shift. It would not pivot back out of the way to drop the wheel in and out. It was being a real brat. I put a used XT 9-speed rear derailleur on, and man, it just instantly works perfect. It shifts, it sucks up all this long chain, so there's no chain slap. It can handle every gear, it can suck all the chain, it shifts great. All problems with the derailleur are solved, which is super nice. And while I'm at it, since I ground the heads off these other bolts to make this fender sit nice and work right, I think I'm going to grind one of these down too, just so I don't have to have this stupid spacer. This is a custom install. I'm already into it. Way more hours than I'm charging for. Might as well make it as nice as possible. And then I'm calling this done. This bike is done. The XT derailleur solves all the problems. These fenders are gorgeous and solve all the problems. And hopefully it gets a rack soon, and who knows, maybe we'll do a couple of little tunes and adjusts eventually after we put some real miles on it. So thanks for watching.